Hello and welcome to Unleashed. I'm your host, Will Bachman. Unleashed is produced by Umbrex. Umbrex helps clients find the right independent management consultant for their project needs. You can learn more at umbrex.com. And if you go to umbrex.com/unleashed, you can sign up for the newsletter for this show. I send out a weekly email with the show notes, but and some bonus material. Today, I am here with Marilyn Lin, who is a customer service thought leader in the SaaS industry. We're going to be referring to a resource that Umbrex published called How to Analyze a SaaS Company. It's a playbook with 35 detailed analyses. So we'll include a link for that in the show notes. Marilyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Will. Thank you for having me on.
So Marilyn, before we jump into these analyses I referred to, just give us a quick sketch of your background.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marilyn Lin, and I am a customer experience and customer support thought leader with over 2 decades of experience, having worked in industry giants like Oracle and Salesforce, and also a high growth startup. I'm currently the founding principal of Lotus Group International, which is my consulting and advisory business. I'm really passionate about transforming customer support into a strategic driver of business success. And so over the years, I've led global technical support teams that not only resolve issues, but also proactively foster customer loyalty, driving renewals, and even informing product strategies. And especially in today's competitive SaaS landscape, customer support is not just a cost center. They are the linchpins of retention and growth. And I'm excited to discuss how to evaluate a SaaS company's success through the lens of support and share actionable insights that can turn any support team into a company's secret weapon.
Amazing. Let's start with some definitions. There are several terms out there, and perhaps you could tell me if these all mean the same things or how you draw distinctions between, and we're referring to in the context of SaaS, let's say, right? Software as a service. So there's customer support, customer service, customer care, customer success, and maybe there's some other terms as well. So kind of differentiate for me a bit about these different terms. I'm confused by what they mean.
Yes, there's definitely several different ways of describing the post-sales organization. Starting out with customer success, which is probably a much easier one to share and define. I equate them to be the team that is focused on the health of a customer, really looking at, on the post-sale side, how customers are leveraging and using the product and solution and making sure that they're realizing value from the investments that they're making with your product and solution. And so they are more akin to the account management side of the organization and really taking care to learn and understand where the customer is at, what are some of their top high priorities from a business standpoint, and being able to help them, guide them through not only leveraging and using the solution and products that they have purchased or subscribed to, but also providing insights into other solutions and products that the company is sharing and have out there for them to be able to leverage, as well as like an opportunity to cross-sell and upsell with an existing client.
Okay, so that's helpful. Customer success. Well, what about some of these other terms? Customer support and customer service. What about those?
Yeah, I think that it can be seen and used interchangeably too. There's also the other team with the word service in it, which is more professional services, right? So you've got folks who are out there helping the customer implement the solution in their environment. In terms of customer service and customer support, it's really the team and folks who are interacting with end users who are using the product and encountering issues with the product solution and helping them drive to resolution and making sure that they know where to find the resources to get information to help them with their usage of the product.
Okay. And customer care, is that the same thing, or would you say that's something different?
Yeah, I think generally I see customer care and customer service terminology used and applied to teams where it is less of a product-based solution. So more maybe B2C type
Uh,
environments is where you see those teams called customer care, customer service, whereas more technical type of support teams tend to be called customer support.
okay. So now if you could for me help give me a bit of a Dewey Decimal System guide, a bit of a classification below the vice president, senior vice president of either customer support or customer service. What are the different subcategories within that? I imagine that one, for example, might be just the onboarding team that helps new B2B customers on board with a SaaS company, and there's probably some other ones. So, what are the kind of the major chunks within customer service?
So there are teams that are focused on customer training and onboarding. Depending on how things are set up, they may not necessarily report up into support. Maybe they are a peer team to the support function and organization. And so then they are focused on providing training and enablement materials, maybe a certification program, and making sure that customers are well trained and well versed in leveraging and using the product and solution. So there is that bucket. Within support, there is the customer delivery team. So that would be made up of folks who are actually handling the cases that are coming in and addressing and interacting with the end users and helping them find the solutions to their issues and problems. There's also a customer escalation team. These folks are involved when customers are escalating about a particular issue or they're dealing with an outage, and you want to have folks who are able to help hone in on that particular account and be a liaison between the support organization with product and engineering and other internal teams as well to drive resolution to those type of customer escalated issues as quickly as possible. So within, support, there's generally the support delivery side, which kind of help keep the lights on, the day to day. And then you've got a customer escalation team there to jump in on situations that need more timely responsiveness and kind of quarterbacking and helping connect the dots with other parts of the internal functions.
Awesome. I'd love to hear your thoughts elaborate a bit on what you talked about earlier of how are customer service organizations typically thought of historically as more of a cost center, and what are some of the things that you helped those organizations do to be more of a revenue driver, more value adder?
Yes, yes, exactly. The reason why I am so passionate about the customer support space is because I've seen how generally customer support is seen as a very tactical team, a cost center, traditionally very reactive, right? They're there as more a break fix organization, but there is such a treasure trove of insights just coming from the interactions that the support organization has with the end users. They see and hear about how customers are using the product or maybe how they're using it differently, not the intended use case perhaps, or they're able to share based on frustrations and whatnot around what is missing, and they want to be able to see improvements in the product and the solution. And so there's such insights about how customers are using or not using the product coming in the support space that really can feed into the product development cycle, right? Like helping the product and engineering teams understand what to prioritize in their product roadmap, driving that voice of the customer. There's also elements related to training and enablement, whether perhaps some of the onboarding materials is not helping customers understand the usage of the product well enough that they're having to reach out to support for help, right? And sometimes it may be related to the usability or the user experience of the product itself that we can pick up and provide insights back to the design team. So those are things that I think from a strategic standpoint, there is so much that the support team can really provide to other parts of the organization. It's just that traditionally it's seen as support is seen as an afterthought, cost center, and not a strategic arm. But if you look at support in a way where they're so tapped into the interactions with the end users, they can bring a lot of those ideas back to the rest of the organization and find, those opportunities to upsell and cross-sell additional products and solutions to the customers as well.
Now, I suppose if you have a large enough set of customers, you couldn't do this if you have only a handful, but if you have a large number of B2B customers, then you could start doing some analytics around the impact of the customer service team, or you could test different interventions in terms of the retention rate, because the retention rate is probably a huge driver of value. If you can go from 60% to 70% retention rate, that's much easier probably than selling an additional 10% clients, right? If you can just retain the ones you've got.
Right.
Talk to me about either retention rate or other metrics that you would pay attention to as the VP of customer service.
Yeah, so I the whole retention rate side of things, it speaks to how so much effort companies put into the building and selling of their products and solution, but then when it comes to the support side, when there's neglect or no investment really being made on that side, then I describe it as like a leaky bucket, right? You're pouring so much and acquiring these customers, but then when it comes to serving them, you're not looking at ways to really help the customers through. And then that also leads to more of the brand and image. In this day and world, I think that a lot of products that are out there is, from a technology standpoint, it's pretty apples to apples for the most part. And what really differentiates, I think it really ties back to the customer experience and those interactions that customers have with the company. And that starts a lot of the times, especially with the end users, not the buyers who, we're dealing with the sales teams, but with the end users who are actually using the product and the solution. They're the ones who are your walking billboards. They're the ones who will go and be out there sharing and letting other people know about, the great product and company. So in terms of the metrics and areas that you asked about, aside from the retention rate, from a customer support perspective, it's really important to understand a couple of metrics related to the time to resolution. Like, how long does it generally take to resolve issues, and understanding what are those common themes of buckets of issues as well, and being able to bubble that back up to the product and engineering side of the house, and being able to tie back to the dollars too. So in a recurring revenue environment, you want to be able to showcase and say, these top case drivers or issues tie back to this set of customers, and this is the ARR it represents to the company, and really giving those numbers back to the executive team to be able to determine how to prioritize those areas to actually, either it's a product bug that they need to fix, or it's a new feature enhancement that they need to prioritize developing. And then there are things that are tied to more efficiency and cost. So I like to look at a couple of things. I call the frequent flyers, really understanding who those common customers are who are logging a lot of issues and cases, and understanding like, what is the reason behind it? Is it again related to training and enablement? Or is it that maybe it goes back to the implementation itself? And truly understanding like, why is it that these set of clients are reaching out to the support team for help on a very regular and frequent basis, right? Another one is then the cost to serve, and truly understanding how much it is costing the company to serve these customers, and breaking it down by segments, maybe by region, slicing and dicing it in different dimensions to get to really learning and understanding the needs of customers and how to be more effective and efficient.
Can you share any war stories related to cost to serve, maybe doing it at the account level? Have you, in your roles, for example, discovered that there was some customer that was very expensive to serve because they were calling all the time, taking all this time and attention, and what did you do in that case? Did you drop them as a customer? Did you, take some intervention?
Yeah, that's a great question. I recall on an occasion where we ran the numbers, and this was the first time we were doing this exercise, and we discovered like, oh my, this one particular user is logging a handful of cases every week,
Huh.
not even like a monthly or quarterly basis. It was like every week there was something popping up from this person, and then we dove in to look a little bit more closely at what was going on. We realized that they were a consultant. And so then he was actually logging cases on behalf of his customers, which is not really how the process is supposed to, work. And so that was an interesting insight for us because of the consulting relationship. He was leveraging that as a way to log on behalf of their customers. But it made it hard from a company's perspective, for example, because he was doing it, cases were associated to his account. And so then we didn't have a good sense of the health of the actual users who had those issues, coming up. So that was one thing that we had to address and kind of work through and understand, clearly the consultant, it's much easier for them to log the cases through their account versus working with the client, asking them for, a login and having to then create the cases through, that customer's account with us. And so we were looking at ways of like how to address making sure that cases were associated with the right actual end user client. So that was one. Another example I have was I was getting pulled into an escalation and having to meet with executives at the client company because they were hearing from their team that my support team was being really slow in closing and resolving their cases. And so I asked my internal team to dig in. A couple of things I look at include where time was spent waiting for us versus waiting on the customer to provide their response back. So, for example, if we gave them a suggested solution, how long would it take for them to let us know whether they tried it or not, if it worked or not, as an example. And so then we would run those kind of analysis to understand. And most of the time, what we uncover is that the amount of time or the life of a case actually is impacted by how long it's sitting with the customer and how not responsive, they are and actually responding and corresponding with the support team. So that was something we were able to call out and point out. And then also something that we discovered was that that this customer, they were employing outside contractors to help with their implementation. And what we learned was these individuals had not gone through certification because we ran the numbers on those as well. And that unfortunately, because of that, they weren't enabled or well-versed in our product. And so then they were reaching out for a lot of how-tos. And so then we found out that the customer had credit, like training credit that they had paid for and not utilizing. And so we suggested to them to get those contractors trained.
You talked through it before. Maybe just summarize it, or when you are in a VP of customer service role, were there metrics that you would be looking at personally on some daily, weekly, monthly basis, and that were your sort of go-to things that you were being maybe measured on yourself and that you were measuring your directors on? What were the kind of the key go-to metrics that you mentioned? You mentioned sort of time to resolve issues was one. What are some of the other ones that are just ones that you're constantly monitoring?
Yeah, so I would describe the metrics as some of it you track because you want to see the trends and changes and kind of getting a good pulse on the health of the support business, right? So you've got your CSAT scores, you've got the NPS, you've got the SLAs, and then I mentioned like the time to resolve. We also look at first time to resolve as well as another metric of how quickly are we able to address a user's issues with the first interaction versus having to do the, bouncing around of the communication with clients. I also like to look at more at the team and an individual level as well in some of these metrics and honing in on, is it a regional related area that we need to look into and dive into? Are there specific individuals that we need to provide better, coaching and guidance? So it's important to be able to not only look at it as a holistic group and function, but diving into these segments within the group and team as well. The employee engagement is a big one for me. So at past companies I've worked for, they run either quarterly or twice a year employee satisfaction surveys. So I always take a lot of time to not only look at the scores and analyze the trends from survey to survey, but also the written feedback. Going through each written feedback and going through an exercise of dumping it into an Excel file and actually grouping them into common themes. And then working with my direct reports to identify those high priority areas that we need to focus on and address. Because for me, there's a lot of talk about customer experience and the focus on, the end users and customers. But I think it really starts with the employee experience, especially in an organization like support, where you want to make sure that you're taking care of the team, that you're providing the right tools, the right processes for the employees with the work that they're doing, and being really truly listening to what the employees and the teams have to say. I think it's really important, especially in a support organization where generally the starting off point is customers are reaching out because they're upset and frustrated with something, right? It starts off with more of that negative tone generally. And so it's a lot for a support agent to have to go through on a day in, day out basis. So I think it's important for support leaders to really look into and taking care of their team, because I think it translates well with, if you take care of your employees, the way that they serve and interact with customers will also be reflected in that way.
It must take a very zen person to absorbing a lot of abuse from annoyed customers. How would you sort of outside in, if you're evaluating a SaaS company and trying to evaluate how they're doing on customer service, what are some of the ways that you would evaluate it kind of outside in if you were doing like a due diligence on a SaaS company?
Yes, for sure. So because I have talked about and I believe in how support can be seen as a strategic organization versus a tactical, what I would like to better understand is, does the support organization have a strategic roadmap, right? Where they lay out what is the vision for the focus of the group and team, and what are those quarterly milestones and initiatives that they're driving to get closer and closer to their end vision, and changing and evolving as business objectives and priorities change as well. I think it's really important. Otherwise, most environments that I've seen or have walked into, it's just very much the tactical approach of, okay, here's our case backlog, here's our case volume. How do we go and drive that down? And what are, those metrics that we're measuring on, and really, pushing the team against those metrics. And I think it needs to be more holistic view of what are those areas of investments that you need to look into, not just focusing on those key metrics, because I've seen organizations where they push their teams and it gets to a point where they burn out, like individuals burn out, right? Like if they're expected to close a certain amount of cases every day, then they're like rushing through it. They're not able to step back and actually look for ways or ideas to provide solutions on actually how to make things more efficient, right? Like, for example, even taking time away to write a knowledge article based on an interaction that they've had, so that they can prevent customers from having to even log a case in the future if they just took the 10, 15 minutes of time to step away, create an article and get that published on the knowledge base, and customers can self-serve and find it and not have to log a case and have, agents work through the case. So that's kind of an example around that piece. And the training and enablement, like, are they making sure that employees do have the time to step away from the case queue to do training, whether it's product training or soft skills training, but to give them opportunities to continue to learn and grow. And especially with AI right now, so much talk about AI, I would look at how our support organizations evaluating the AI solutions that are out there, how they're thinking about implementing those solutions into their environment to further enhance the way that they're supporting their customers.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about AI. Give me some examples of things that you've seen recently of what's happening with implementation of AI and customer service.
Yeah, so I can draw on my own experience of implementing AI several years back before ChatGPT really just became on everyone's radar, and now you can't go anywhere without people talking about AI. So this was like late 2020, early 2021, where the team I was with, the MuleSoft support team within Salesforce, we were the first team to look into leveraging AI and machine learning and bringing that into our support processes. And in particular, the solution we brought in was called Support Logic. And the way it worked was it was able to go through all the historic cases that we had in the system. And then, of course, as incoming cases came through, it would analyze those as well. But it really helped us better understand the needs of the customers. As these new cases are logged, we have a historical view of that particular user, that account. The tool was able to, based on machine learning, help us identify potential cases that would get flagged as going down potential escalation paths. So making sure that our managers and the team have awareness of these potential cases that were going to get escalated so that they can jump in and be in front of it. Because before, especially for managers, it was a blind spot, right? Like until customers actually kicked and screamed and started escalating an issue, there was no way for them to really get a sense of what was going on in that customer's environment. But the support logic tool really helped us, almost like a command center, where every morning as the manager logs in, they pull this up, they can quickly see, okay, here are the top accounts that they need to pay attention to, that day, making sure that the owners who are assigned to those cases are the right owners to handle and deal with those issues. And then they can hone in on focusing on those particular cases and accounts and working with their team to, better provide resolution to the end users. And so, we definitely saw improvements in the way that managers manage their team. And then also from the support agent side, we were able to leverage the solution to better assign cases to the right folks who had the right knowledge and experience to handle and resolve cases in a much more efficient way.
Fantastic. Marilyn, this has been a great overview and intro into customer service in the SaaS world. For listeners that want to find out more about your firm and contact you, where would you point them online?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, and also my company website is golotusgroup.com.
Amazing. We will include that link as well as your LinkedIn URL in the show notes. Marilyn, thank you for joining.
Thank you again for having me on the show.